What is up, homies? Welcome back to another episode of the Heroes Reforged Podcast, episode 2. We were going to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we wanted to give everyone a chance to watch Captain America: Brave New World. So we're going to pivot a little bit. And what are we talking about today, Hector?
Fantastic Four. Michael Giacchino. Guys, there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. And this podcast has become our outlet to have those in-depth conversations, okay? The first episode, the idea that I pitched you guys and you were like, hell yes, was Superman. Why? Because that trailer came out. And then seeing the discussion of people in our YouTube comments reacting to the trailer, I was like, hang on, there's more to, because we're chatty Cathys, myself the most. We talk after we watch a trailer, a TV show, whatever, a movie. But there's something different to sitting down with your friends and like actually getting into it. And the same thing happened with this new trailer for Fantastic Four. A lot of thoughts from all parties involved. And I want to get into, this isn't so much, well, it is. This is.
Well, talk about where this came from, where this idea came from. Because you saw other narratives going around and you kind of really
I'm pissed. I'm royally pissed. I'm mad.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Here's what I'm at. See, you know how to rev me up.
You poke that beehive.
That's right, baby.
You know how to. I know, dude. He really does every week.
Good.
He'll see that beehive and he'll just be like, "Hey, Hector." He's like, "Set this off." Okay, not to try to start this from a negative place, because the other thing I was thinking too was like,
we still have to do housekeeping, so just give us a precursor and we'll do some housekeeping.
We'll do housekeeping here in a minute, but. It's it like the Superman combo was great because it was like share your love of the character.
Right.
I love that, dude. Like hearing you talk about Superman and Lois, hearing you talk about Superman, Christopher Reeve, Smallville, everything is great. And I know you love Dr. Doom. And to the point where I'm like, I don't think people understand why you love that character so much, you know? And I know that I love the Fantastic Four and we each have we have the baggage. But so we're going to get into that. So that's what I want the thrust of it to be. But yeah, dude, I'm pissed because there'll be some people right now. There's some people right now just talking out of their ass. Where I'm like, how do you know? How do you know that that's what they're gonna do? You don't know.
There's been so many videos that have popped up on my feed that's like, I know what's gonna happen in Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I feel like that's just something that we've been dealing with for the last 10 years of making content on the internet, and we always message each other. We're like, look at what. Look at this motherfucker say.
Yeah, dude.
Damn son of a bitch.
It's the audacity. It's the authority where I'm seeing some of our friends and colleagues and other sort of nerdy channels on the internet. They're already talking about, well, I would love to see this after they reboot it. I would love to see this after they recast Tony Stark, Iron Man. I'm like, hang on a minute. Pump the brakes.
Whoa.
What in the hell are you talking about?
Whoa.
Why the confidence? Why the audacity to already be talking about phase 7 of the Marvel Cinematic? Like, you know how this... Anyway, so... Let's get into all that. Adam, housekeeping, please.
Thank you. If you guys want to check out everything else that we're watching on the channel, so many movies, so many shows. We're going to be watching Daredevil very soon. Check it out on the Patreon, link down below. We also have new merch. It's so fun to see people posting on Instagram and Twitter, sharing the merch. Some folks have been sharing the hats that they've gotten, the shirts they've gotten.
Stitched
sweaters,
hats,
dude. I'm so excited. I'm a sweater boy.
Yeah.
Let's get some sweaters, baby.
Ours are coming in a few days. Get excited.
That's all I'm going to wear for this show, by the way.
Absolutely. But check out the links down in the description below. We have links for everything that you're looking for. If you're looking for the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man reactions, they're on Patreon as well. So check those out. And that's all my housekeeping. So
and we're talking specifically about the Ben Affleck Daredevil is what we're about to watch. That's what you were referring to?
No, but we are also watching that. Yeah.
We are also watching that.
I'm excited.
And Born Again.
Yes.
And then so on. Okay, gentlemen, let's start. Let's go ahead and get into this. We've got here first thing. Let's just kind of clear the air.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this movie that's coming out, Fantastic Four, this summer. You said that Daredevil Born Again, the TV show.
He's making accusatory remarks again.
Yeah, he's mad.
I'm like Judge Judy. I'm like, you said this. The lie detector proved that was a lie.
On October 27th.
You said, and I quote
on episode 12.
No, but you said you thought Daredevil, the TV show, has more pressure on it. Than the Fantastic Four movie, which I think is very interesting. But I want to get into that. But just going around the table, Augustine, start with you. Fantastic Four, we saw the trailer. How are you feeling about it right now? What are your expectations? Give me the positives and give me the negatives. Go.
Honestly, right now, I'm still stuck on the visual style. Remember how we were talking about how Thunderbolts looks like the gray hodgepodge of every single Marvel movie that we've seen?
Unfortunately,
but on purpose, but yes.
On purpose or not, it's gray, colorless, looks just like everything else.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four doesn't look like that, which gives me hope that like, okay, I think they're really like putting a lot of effort into this. Hopefully they're putting as much effort into the story that they're putting into the visual style. Hopefully the visual style doesn't disappear after what we see here.
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
not in the current MCU, so it goes somewhere. I don't want that world to kind of go away. It's giving me kind of like Wanda vibes right now because are they like brainwashed? I don't know. I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
And I
Well, it's
like
the same
that. I don't
It's
know
also
what to
Matt
think.
Shackman directing. Yeah.
Same director, yeah.
I don't know what to think, and I like that because I feel like we've predicted and we've been around these movies and properties for so long
Mhm.
that it's kind of easy to predict what's gonna happen, or like our
It's a
predictions
very
have
nice
been
way of saying we've been around the block a few times.
our predictions have been accurate
Yeah,
more
and-
than once is what I'm
absolutely.
trying
and
to say.
I other than like the specific combination of characters in Thunderbolts, the movie,
Mhm.
I don't see myself being too surprised with
Mhm.
any curveballs they throw in there.
Right,
because I'm
right,
like,
right.
well, I know what the Sentry is.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? So I hear what you're saying. It's just
Yeah.
like I also am yeah.
The other big thing too, obviously, Doom is my number one guy when it comes to villains.
Yes.
Wolverine and Doom next to each other. It's going to be interesting to see how they set this up,
Dude.
I don't know if they're going to drop any hints. I still don't like the RDJ casting for Doom. I'm still very confused about that. Open to ideas, but not digging it so far.
Okay.
So that tie-in, I like that I don't know where it's going right now. Hopefully it's something cool. I
Just
don't
about
know.
in case somebody's watching this and they didn't see our last year San Diego Comic-Con in person, shot a quick little video as we're walking by the wharf by the bay.
Mhm, mhm.
Just give us a quick like, why are you feeling the way you're feeling about Robert Downey Jr. as Doom?
You guys know there's a lot of baggage. There's a lot of baggage that comes with RDJ.
Yeah.
And we got a complete story with him. I cried when Iron Man died.
Yeah.
To see a reincarnation of Doom as Tony Stark. Granted, there was a weird one-off storyline where that kind of does happen. Kind of, not exactly how it's happening here.
It's just
Sorry,
not
I
the
hit
norm.
the mic.
It's just
It's
not
the norm. And it's also in the MCU, it's its own beast. RDJ kind of started the MCU, and to see him bring that baggage over to, I call it baggage like it's a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but to bring that energy to a character as important as Doom, who is a legacy villain for everybody in the
Yeah.
MCU,
Yeah.
who can play the good side and the bad side if he
Yeah.
wants to, who was God Doom and destroyed everybody at a specific point. Like he ripped Thanos' face out of his cranium and his spine out. Like he's a force to be reckoned with. And to have the Iron Man and the Doom stuff kind of mixed in together, to me, doesn't necessarily sit right. So obviously I want Doom to stand alone. I want Doom to be his own guy, and I want Doom to be brought in tied to the Fantastic Four. Obviously.
Needs to be.
It needs to be. So that's I'm in a big gray zone right now. I'm excited for the project.
Yes. It looks great.
It looks fantastic. But as far as like bringing in all of these things that I'm kind of expecting, I don't know.
Murky water still a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Every time I hear you talk about it, like I'm
Yeah.
reminded. I feel the same way, and it's just like, dang, dude. The way you're describing it is, I echo those same sentiments with Doctor Doom. It's like, okay, whatever this Robert Downey Jr. Doom is going to be, it does feel like, okay, it's not going to be the true Doctor Doom. It's not going to be the this is going to be a multiverse fun time. The same way Henry Cavill is not Wolverine.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the same way, frankly, Wesley Snipes was not Blade.
Yeah.
That is a fun dude. They brought back Wesley. I'm not mad at that. I'm
Yeah.
overjoyed.
Yeah.
But I'm also not one of the fans who is like, hey, just keep bringing Wesley back. He should just be the Blade. I'm like, hang
No.
on a minute.
They already
Yeah.
have a Blade.
We got a Blade.
There's a potential to take that character, and it's not just the Wesley Snipes version, and it's not just, a continuation of those 3 movies that are also, they come with baggage, good and
A
bad.
lot of baggage.
But like, I want to see Marvel Studios do their version of Blade, what they've been working on, and how it can go forward and have its own future. The same way Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I think, is one of the best things about the Marvel Studios Marvel brand. And I love Toby and Andrew, and I love the way they brought them back. But like, I wasn't, even though I would go to bat for the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, I was not somebody that in 2014 would be like, just merge him into it. Just bring him in. Because I'm like, Sony made some choices, knowing that if I were at Marvel Studios, I'd be like, I don't want to work with those choices. We want to do this character from the ground up. I want to see Blade from the ground up. I want to see the X-Men from the ground up.
Why be pigeonholed?
Why be pigeonholed? And so far, this Fantastic Four is from the ground up. It's their own thing.
Yeah.
They're not just bringing back Michael Chiklis. They're not just doing a multiverse in that regard. But everything you're saying about Doctor Doom makes me feel like if they're not if they're going to be limited with like, we have Robert Downey for 2 movies, just this one particular story, just this version that may or may not be connected to Tony Stark, just this one character that's going to have baggage related to how we, the audience, see him, makes me feel like, well, then don't do it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do full blown Doctor Doom, then don't do it. Cause it's just,
What are you doing? What are you doing?
wasting my time?
You're still unless, again, I'm not mad at Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right.
And I'm not mad at Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
Great excuses to bring back Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Hugh Jackman. But I'm not going, oh, they should just have Hugh Jackman play, because I'm like,
until he's 90.
I want to see
a new Wolverine. Yeah, exactly.
And I want to see that story start fresh from people who, in my opinion, understand these characters and the comic book stories better than Fox did 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Better than,
But also, you have to remember that Kevin Feige, in some capacity, worked on those films.
For sure.
So the good things I feel like good things that came out of those movies were probably because of him.
And this guy is not infallible. I'm sure he's made calls as a producer that I don't agree with, I don't love. And I'm a little bit worried with Fantastic Four and X-Men that I'm like, dude, again, if I were Feige, I would be making certain calls that I think kind of go in line with every other decision he's made in terms of being in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm just worried that some of the misses, some of the critical failures, or not failures, but like Eternals is not rated fresh on the tomato meter or whatever, is the lowest rated movie. Quantumania, which again, I would still take those movies over many other franchise movies from other franchises, XYZ, whatever. But
agreed.
I worry that this desperation of the Robert Downey,
it smells like desperation a little bit.
We need a hit. We need a hit.
The bad hand they were dealt with Jonathan Majors and Kang. I worry that all that is going to,
bringing back the Russos and just
which I'm like, I would rather have seen Destin Daniel Cretton's Avengers movie because I love Shang-Chi. Yeah. But okay, Russos, you better blow the fucking doors off this thing. Anyway, Adam, how are you? Those are my expectations, good and bad, about Fantastic Four. How are you?
I forgot I still needed to provide an answer.
No, go for it.
It's just Augustine had such good answers. I had to chime in.
Well, and I feel like for me, it's a little bit of like the opposite Superman situation, right? Because I like Fantastic Four, I like Marvel, but I love the stuff we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So with this, I'm kind of going to, I wouldn't even say I've been burned because I enjoy the 2005 Fantastic Four movie.
Yes.
I don't love Rise of the Silver Surfer. And I didn't really like the second half of Fan Four Stick. Yeah. The first half, there were elements about it I really enjoyed.
Okay.
So I'm mostly going
into
cracking
this. Up. You'd be reminded of the Fantastic Four.
He's like, Fan Four Stick, damn.
I hated Fan Four Stick.
I know. It was
not great. Not great.
But I think the thing that truthfully has me more excited about the new Fantastic Four movie is the cast.
100%.
Like, I love the cast.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Eben Moss, Backrack. Like, it's an incredible cast. So I think that right now has me more excited. And the retro 60s future, the mid-century modern, Augustine's going to just touch himself in the theater to it.
It's cream jeans, baby. It's cream jeans.
It looks great.
Yeah, I think those are the elements that I think I'm more excited for rather than sitting there to figure out, well, how does this tie into everything?
Sure.
Because I think, well, we'll talk about it, but I am curious to see just how it's going to tie into the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't feel like I have that deep of an attachment to it because those are not the characters that I love. I'm kind of more invested into it because of you guys, because you guys love these characters. So I'm really curious to see how you feel about it.
Did you ever get Adam to read the Fantastic Four run? The
Mark Waid?
The Mark Waid ones?
I don't know.
So.
Dude, the one where I read them. The one where Dr. Doom killed his girlfriend and wore her skin as armor. Oh my God. It happens in like the first issue of the book.
Well,
I'm gonna need that comic immediately.
It's in like the second.
Oh yeah, early on. It happens early on.
Yeah.
But he sacrifices her to Mephisto, right? I think Mephisto.
I can't remember. But
some hell being.
The love of his life.
It's the love of his life, and he wears leather armor that's made out of her skin.
Yes.
It's fucking wild, dude.
It's awesome.
It's some crazy shit
to gain more power at the sorcery level.
Exactly. So I feel like you need to get
this comic.
I feel like you just need to read this to kind of get like a baseline on what could be possible in the F4 because it's a great Fantastic Four story. It's a great Doom story, and altogether, it's a great kind of like if you don't read anything else, that's kind of like a good baseline.
That Mark Waid and artist mostly, but there was some other artists that came in for the run. Mike Raringo, who passed away sadly, is my favorite jumping on point for Fantastic Four.
It's a great jumping on point.
It's kind of the beginning of their modern comic life. And there's been other great stuff since then. But like you've read House of X, Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah, I didn't finish them, but I read some of it.
But you
yeah.
started, and Jonathan Hickman also did a lot of Fantastic Four stuff, including the Future Foundation, which this movie is going to have some version of, which is like, depending on what they're going to use it as, it's basically a big proclamation of Reed Richards and the family being like, we're trying to make the world better in this way, which is this big bombastic sci-fi concept stuff. So Jonathan Hickman stuff is great, but it's also very heady.
It is, yeah.
It is, but I love it.
Yeah.
So
But
that's
it's
why,
really, I love the depth.
yeah.
I like that it's like that.
The Mark Waid stuff I think is lighter and it's also more accessible in some ways, but then you get those moments with, it's very character focused.
Yeah.
I think that run kind of defined Ben Grimm for me, Johnny Storm, Reed Richards,
a
and
lot of great
Susan.
moments. Yeah.
And so I want to go off of what you were just talking about, because that's my next point anyway here, is sort of like, well, what is the future of these characters and why am I so mad at
The world?
some of the internet and their sort of takes, their sort of assumed takes, and and why do people? It's very valid. Everybody can have a different. Everyone's just theorizing right now. What are the theories? I think the theories are the Fantastic Four from this universe. They're going to lose this universe, but they'll hop over into our main 616 sacred timeline. Reality 199999, whatever you want to call it, but the MCU, and then they'll stay here and then they'll live here. And for some, they're like, great, good enough for me. And for others, like my annoying ass, I'm like, no, that's no good. That doesn't work for me. Reed would fix it, because I've read Secret Wars. I've read stories where something similar happens and he fixes it.
Right. Here's the thing, Hector.
Yeah.
This is what separates you from the rest of the pack, though.
Yeah.
Because you're already 12 steps ahead. Of
You
like,
are Reed Richards.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like somebody would be like, okay, cool. As something as simple as Galactus ate their planet. You're like, wait, hold on. He's reversed that already in the past. Like, there's almost nothing that Reed can't undo.
Except for one thing.
With all of his knowledge and everything, right? And so you're right. To have that kind of like conviction, to have the unstoppable mind of Reed is like, it's something that's his strongest asset, right?
Yeah.
So he would always be searching and yearning for that, to do that.
Yes.
Is that something that would carry, would you see that as a definable character arc for Reed, like wanting to disappear? And do you see it as like their exit out of the MCU if they do decide to do something like that? Because I don't know if Bethel is going to stick around for
and go
10,
back home
15 years.
He's got 8 seasons of The Last of Us to do.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing it's so funny that you bring that up. I want to make this comparison, okay? In Marvel Comics, Steve Rogers is forever there, forever. But in the movies, they did, I think, such a great job setting up this relationship between him and Peggy Carter that as a movie viewer, it is unsatisfying and sad that he cannot be with her, he cannot be with her, he cannot be with her. And that's one of the reasons, and the main reason actually being that Chris Evans is going to age like a normal person because he's
43
right?
now.
Right?
Exactly.
That they were like, oh, this is an opportunity for us to retire this actor, still have the character. We're going to pass it off to Anthony Mackie in theaters this weekend. But also like give audiences an incredibly satisfying end to a problem that we set up. The problem of him not being with Peggy is much more pronounced in the movies than it ever was a thing in the comic books. It's not really a thing in the comics. He did have a brief love affair with Peggy Carter, who was like a French resistance fighter. Maybe she was British in the comics, and it was only ever in like flashbacks, and really just as a way to set up that Steve eventually meets her niece, Sharon Carter, and him and Sharon have more of a thing in the present. Yeah, but the movies are like, dude, Peggy's his OTP, one true pair.
Yeah.
So for him to retire, I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
And I understand comic fans are like, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't. Well, hang on a minute. I've heard Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky, say that he as an actor did not see it as his friend abandoning himself. He saw it as Steve being able to say the world is in a better place because of all of our efforts. Everything we did. And now that he has access, and he knows this, and he has access to the time travel technology that he previously didn't have, he's able to kind of satisfactorily do this thing. And I also don't believe that Steve Rogers would just not let anything change. I think this is a stupid side tangent. I think he specifically, while traveling the multiverse, found a universe where he dies in the ice. So he's not like replacing it.
Right. Like Captain America's never awoken in 7 years.
Comes out of the ice.
Steve dies, but he still had everything up in the same first movie up to that point where Peggy says goodbye to him. So he really is stepping into like, well, this Steve passed away. And then he goes and saves Bucky. And then he goes and makes friendly relations with the king of Wakanda, whoever it might be in the 40s, 50s, and just like prepares the earth for Thanos. Just everything is just like, it becomes a utopia.
It makes it possible that he doesn't even have to be Captain America.
Well, it could be that's the future retro of the Fantastic Four. Like, we don't know.
Exactly.
Like, he makes it such a utopia. He makes it so great. But anyway, the point is, that's a satisfying thing. Then you bring up Captain Marvel. Well, hang on a minute. She's from the 90s. Wouldn't you want to travel back to her? No, because there's no time travel involved. There's no lost time. Because Carol Danvers lived since 1995, unaging with her powers, but she's out in space helping people, saving aliens, saving characters. So she's never going to want to undo that. But I think Steve saw an opportunity with multiversal travel to go, oh, I can pick a universe where, it's not me stealing a man's life or stealing Peggy's husband's life. Because, in the regular MCU, like she married somebody and they had a life or whatever. Anyway, it's satisfying to see Steve retire in this way. We don't need Carol to go back to the 90s. That's not the journey. But if the Fantastic Four lose their reality either to Galactus or to a multiversal incursion threat, the way that Secret Wars sets up, my dude is going to fix it. And if they're natively from that universe, Reed is going to bring him and his family back to that place.
However long it takes.
It
could be a month. It could be 20 years.
And it's like, and if you're saying, well, Hector, couldn't they do 3 Fantastic Four movies where the first one, they're in their reality, but then they lose it. The second and third, either before or after, it'll probably be after Secret Wars. They're just in the regular MCU. And then at the end of the third movie, Reed is like, family, I've solved it. I found a way to resurrect and reconstruct our reality. Using the Infinity Gauntlet, using the whatever
it is.
So now we say goodbye, and the 4 of them leave. That's also so unsatisfying to me because they're the Fantastic Four more than, and I know I'm wearing a She-Hulk shirt, and at one point she's a member of the Fantastic Four, but she's always only temporary.
Yeah.
The X-Men are many different characters. The Avengers are many different characters. Captain America can pass that mantle on. Spider-Man can pass that mantle on. But the Fantastic Four are them. Yeah. So if
there's no other version of Reed,
and if you take away,
there are, but like,
but he's still Mr. Fantastic.
He's still Reed.
If you make it, exactly. So I would be very unsatisfied if they're just like, and we're done. We did the 3 movies. I'm like, I don't need them to keep making Fantastic Four movies forever. But the same way that Mark Ruffalo just kind of keeps showing up and it's the CG. You know what I mean? Like he
could Pedro just show up in an X-Men movie or something random.
That's
like
it, dude.
Yes,
that's it.
But also, I think Reed is a super important character.
That's what I'm saying.
In all of the
That's what I'm saying.
MCU. Like he's a member of the Illuminati, obviously.
Yes.
Like he is a big time pusher of movements like Xavier, like Doom, like Namor, like Cap, like Iron Man. Like he is a tent pole person in all of this. So I agree with that, but I also feel like they have to think about the exits of these characters at this point.
And again, one of the reasons I love the MCU is because they're using actors and they do age and there's a finite amount of time. And I don't want Hemsworth to play Thor for forever, but I'll tell you what, if they don't use Hemsworth as Thor, but they don't like kill the character off in 20, 30 years from now, and with Hemsworth as like an older actor, and I want all these actors to age, of course, and have normal lives. And I saw The Substance. I don't want them to get crazy and try to like stay young, like be normal. But if in 20, 30 years, old Hemsworth is like, I'm going to do old King Thor as a movie.
That'd be amazing.
Imagine that.
He could.
That'd be rad.
Just the potential of that stuff. And some of these characters are so, again, I don't need Cumberbatch to do movies beyond Doctor Strange 3. But if he's always sort of in play, or if Benedict Wong is sort of in play, I love the idea that these movies can go and bounce around to different sort of pockets of their Earth or their universe and go, well, now we're going to check in with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now we're going to check in with the magic users. Now we're going to check in with the mutants. Now we're going to check in with the Fantastic Four real quick. And, oh, here's Daredevil over here. He's still in Hell's Kitchen. Like, that's it. And so I'm thinking, I guess, 12 steps ahead. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I love that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I think that's what a lot of people are kind of, they're hyper focusing on the fact that the Fantastic Four are here.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
But we need to play the long game of like, what's it going to look like in 10 years? What's it going to look like potentially in 15 years?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. And I think part of what made the first Infinity Saga so satisfying is that that payoff took 10 years.
Yes.
When everybody gets dusted and everybody comes back, 10 years of diehard allegiance to these movies, watching every single one, investments, right? I feel like that is still possible again. I feel like, though, as much as we introduce characters, we also have to think about their exit in the MCU.
Yeah.
Well,
like
and I
even
think
Wolverine,
Yeah.
even though he's
for
eternal, Doom too, like everybody
Mm-hmm.
who's like a big presence
Yeah.
should have an exit strategy.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
know Marvel Parliament has talked about that, or Kevin Feige's talked about Marvel Parliament, how every year or every few years they go off for a
Mhm.
weekend trip and they try to map out what's the next 5 years.
Mhm.
And I know they're thinking about those things.
Yeah.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have to be very aware, especially once you acquire Fox and you reacquire all those Marvel characters.
Mhm.
Like the Fantastic Four movie, it's still credited as a 20th Century Studios film with Marvel Studios.
Really?
So I don't think that there's necessarily any like legal shenanigans they have to work with. But if there are, it's all those little details that they have to think about of
Yeah.
like, okay, if we do this, how many movies can it be over what span of time? Da 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 da. Where do these characters pop up? You know, it's that whole thing. So of course,
Yeah.
I think the way that you're thinking is the way that Marvel Studios thinks
Yeah.
when they are making those considerations of, well, Pedro Pascal is, you know, in his early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
If he plays
Yeah.
this character for a decade, he'll be in his 50s. Does that give us enough runway
Mm-hmm.
to tell the Reed Richards stories that we want to tell that are satisfying to us, that will be satisfying to him as an actor
Yeah.
to devote that time, but will also be satisfying to the fans who are going to invest the time to watch those movies.
Also,
So,
I hate to bring this up, but we don't want another King situation.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Like what happened? What is their strategy now? Like,
Mhm.
did they change strategies after all that went down? Because I'm
Yes, I'm
guessing
sure.
they have to have contingency plans of like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if something happens with these characters,
and I hate
we're
saying
gonna
it, but-
we're gonna lock them up under Disneyland.
Yeah,
and they're
well,
not going
And
anywhere.
I hate to say this because this is a little grim, but the strikes were kind of an easy thing for them to fix it all.
Yes.
Right.
Because it
They
gave
had-
them time. Everything was
Correct,
delayed.
Correct. And
Mhm.
the other thing I'll say too is, I'm sure everything is always in flux and in motion. Okay. And the loss of Chadwick Boseman,
Mm-hmm.
we know was a
Crazy.
seismic, and I'm so content with their decision to go to T'Challa's retired.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people disagree with that, and a lot of people are mad at it. But it's like they had a lot of valid reasons to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the main important one is like, we just want to honor Chadwick and not necessarily in a grim way,
Mm-hmm.
bring in a new actor immediately and go, okay, and the next Black Panther
Yeah.
2, so
okay,
he can
bye,
fight
guy, thank
Namor.
you. Yeah, that's it.
Especially because we didn't know this at the time, but Ryan Coogler and team were already planning on introducing T'Challa's biological son.
Mhm.
So you want to talk
Yeah.
about that long game? You want to talk about characters that they're setting up? Like, here's the Young Avengers. We literally are probably going to use Kamala Khan,
Mhm.
you know, or America Chavez, these sorts of characters, and they'll be the face of this franchise for the next 10, 15, 20 years. The
Mhm.
way that Tom Holland, they're probably really going to use Peter Parker. He's such an important character. And that long-term planning, I think, is also why we got the Multiverse Saga. Because instead of them going, okay, Thanos is done, let's jump into the next big, most popular thing, which is the X-Men.
Mhm.
And they got the rights to the X-Men. They went, hang on a minute. Let's, instead of doing like the substitute for Thanos would be, I don't know, Apocalypse or the Dark Phoenix entity or something that's this big, or Magneto or something. They went, we really need to keep stretching this out because I think they do see themselves as this infinitely long franchise.
I don't think they ever want to stop printing money.
Because
No.
and truly, when they brag and they're like, Marvel Comics has 5,000 characters, I'm like, okay, you got a couple hundred that are worthy of like a movie. You have supporting characters.
2 dozen that are worthy of a
Yeah.
trilogy.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
really do have so many. So I think they went, okay, let's postpone this, prolong this. What's a next great Avengers thing that could give us the excuse to bring in actors from previous franchises like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Hugh Jackman? A multiverse. The villain should be Kang. He's an Avengers villain. And I'm sure their conversations were like, really? But is he? They're like, hang on, we can write him up, we can build him up, and he can be a Thanos level character.
They watched Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah, and he is. He's dope.
Is dope in that show. You
Yeah.
haven't seen that yet.
No, I know.
But
You're
it's
right.
a
Our
great,
audience has been asking
you're
us to
right.
watch
it's
that.
a great
right.
interpretation of Kang, right?
Yes.
And that was actually my first experience with Kang because I didn't really know the character.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this guy's a real big threat. Like
Yeah.
a real big threat.
So it all makes sense.
So it all made sense that they would bring on all of that stuff. It's just I would just like to be in those planning sessions or at least listen or at least have a
Oh,
little
God, I'd
insight.
love
Yeah.
to.
Oh my
Up
God.
to,
To be a
like-
fly on the wall at Marvel
Yeah,
Studios.
just to like be like, okay, they're on the right track. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be quiet.
No,
I'll be quiet.
but-
I'll be quiet.
But all of this, I think, does, you know, you look at Phase 4 and people are like, why did they introduce a bunch of characters that we don't care about? It's like, dude, that's what Phase 1 was.
yeah.
That's what Phase 2 was.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's
You
so
know?
funny that people like to pretend that Captain America and Thor were like A-list characters.
they were not. They were not. They weren't.
No.
And I
Nobody
think
cared
that,
about him.
that they've always struck the balance of established character is going to get a sequel, and then a new entity or new franchise that you're not aware of, like Ant-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy or what have you. But I think that all of this is like them looking at this planning and going, okay, let's postpone us doing mutants. We did our own Tom Holland Spider-Man, and that was awesome. But actually, what if we paused? Because Deadpool's a train that has already left the station. Let's do Deadpool 3. Let's use as an excuse to kind of like, legacy and celebrate the previous actors. Hell, we can do that in Doctor Strange. Let's bring back Patrick Stewart. Oh my God, how fun is that going to be to see him in the yellow hover chair and you hear the music, the things that the Fox movies never did. Yeah. We're going to have some fun with that. And when this is all said and done and we close the book on the multiverse, then we will do our Charles Xavier. Then we will do our Fantastic Four. The key difference is as beloved or successful to varying degrees as those previous Fantastic Four movies are, not to the same level as the X-Men movies, obviously. They were not going, how do we bring back, Michael Chiklis' thing, everyone's favorite. But what's funny is they did bring back Chris Evans as Human Torch.
They did.
So like they know how to do it. They know how to use it. But
long enough.
But I think that with Secret Wars and everything that was happening, they were like, we can't do Secret Wars without some version of Reed Richards. Let's just do our own. Oh, and let's put him in its own separate universe for now to start with, which can really add to the Multiverse Saga. And we'll crash,
real excited.
We'll crash everything together. And it's just all kind of adds to what they're already trying to do.
Yeah.
Without them committing and going, the Fantastic Four are just in the same New York that Spider-Man and Daredevil are in. And it's the same, MCU. They can do a little bit of that storytelling with that. So
and I also, now that we've been talking it out, the thought of Galactus consuming their planet, consuming their universe, it also seems like the most obvious thing to do. And I feel like if you do that, is that going to be really lazy?
I mean, look, so we haven't seen it before. People are kind of asking for that, right? We want to see Galactus destroy a planet. Obviously, that's what he does.
Be a threat.
That's some basic bitch shit, though, dude. Like, for real? That's what
we saw, man. Vaporize half the universe with
a little bit.
With a snap of his finger.
That's him at lunch, dude.
He'll
eat planets for lunch.
You notice also how when people talk about Galactus with this new movie, they're like, "Well, Galactus is going to destroy their universe, and then they'll have no choice but to escape the universe, punch out of it, and get into the." You see how people are already upgrading Galactus. No shade to Galactus. He is a big Marvel threat, and he's a force of nature.
But he's a planet eater.
He's Pac-Man. We started with Thanos. Who did wipe out half of all life in a universe. How do you step up from that? And the next logical step is, well, whole entire universes have to be wiped out. Deadpool and Wolverine showed us that that's kind of already happening. Certain universes are. Blade's universe, Elektra's universe, Ben Affleck, Daredevil died. Like, the universes are getting, eradicated.
Evaporated.
In fact, Deadpool's previous X-Men universe technically evaporated, but he was living in like a rebooted universe thanks to X-Men Days of Future Past. Super loose canon. It doesn't really matter, but like,
that shit is so loosey-goosey.
Nobody really gives a shit. But like, if you wanted to get into the minutia of it, you could. But people are already upgrading Galactus. And it's like, the other thing I think is interesting about Galactus is the Silver Surfer is not Norrin Rad. It's a woman character, but it's not even a woman version of Norrin Rad. It's an actor playing Shala Bal, who is like Norrin Rad's lover and wife, I think, on the planet Zen-La, where Norrin Rad comes from. So it really feels like a what if. It really feels like this isn't really like the main line universe of the Marvel universe. This is not only is it retro future, but like this is universe where what if instead of Norrin Rad sacrificing himself to become the Silver Surfer, his wife steps in and she goes, "Take me instead." And then Norrin Rad and his planet are spared, which is an interesting what if, but it's also kind of like, dang, we didn't even get a regular Silver Surfer to begin with. They're kind of doing the what if before the main thing, which means, does that mean that if we ever get Galactus in the regular MCU, that there's going to be a male Silver Surfer zipping through next to him? You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, that's the way that it went in like the sacred timeline. Everything else is sort of a fun, it's a branch timeline. It's a 60s retro future. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's another thing kind of makes me mad about it. But you see what I'm saying?
I don't know if this is a podcast episode or a therapy session.
This is a therapy session for sure.
But you know what? As someone who knows Fantastic Four primarily from the films, and has not tapped into any of the comic books, this is super insightful and helpful. And I have to imagine that there's tons of people in our audience who feel the same way. So that's why I like having these conversations.
To be clear, I'm not a misogynist on YouTube who I'm not saying that like the Silver Surfer wouldn't work unless it's a man. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they specifically said it's Shalabal.
Right.
Maybe she will be the main Silver Surfer. Maybe they'll say that Galactus is a multiversal Galactus, and it's fine. That's fine. You can do the exact same Silver Surfer stories, some of those great comic book moments with Shalabal as Silver Surfer. It doesn't ultimately matter.
No,
but I'm just saying it's interesting that this sort of
I never thought about it being like a what if episode, but it kind of feels like that now that you're saying
that's
it out
why
loud.
I kind of mentioned the WandaVision type stuff, because what if it is that kind of situation where
into my theory.
Somebody's hiding the Fantastic Four because they're such a threat?
Exactly.
What if it is Wanda before she passes away?
Oh, interesting. Could be.
No, but she wasn't alive when.
I don't know. I mean, it could, whatever.
I can see his wires rewiring.
Yeah, right. But it could be that kind of situation.
Wanda Maximoff was killed
according to the sacred texts.
Fall of 2024. No, yes, it would work. It wouldn't work. It's fine. Whatever. Okay. I would love to get before we move on, I have some like comments from our Discord or from our YouTube that I'd love to get to. Before we do that, though, are there any other final thoughts you guys want to talk about with Fantastic Four, with Doctor Doom, with the future, with this movie that's coming out? Anything else?
I don't really have any like pressing topics to talk about, but I think just the choice to bring in Robert Downey Jr. to play some version of Doom is really interesting to me. And I'm sure the movie will obviously do a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
But that connectivity, like, is he going to be connected to those Fantastic Four characters, or will he be some complete different opposite end of the universe version of Victor Von Doom that just happens to look like Tony Stark?
Did I just hear you say interesting? I will fight you.
Yeah.
That's the end of the show, everyone. Thanks for watching.
I'm not going to fight you.
No, I have some theories.
I'm just a hater. That's all.
I have a theory.
No, I get it, though, but I just like, well, why that choice?
So weird.
Did you guys ever read Marvel 1602?
No.
So I'm going to spoil it for you, but I think there's a pretty brilliant idea in that comic book. It's in the year 1602 with like the colonial Americas are trying to break off from British rule. Like it's normal U.S. history and there's settlers in the Americas. But there's also all the Marvel characters, okay? Sir Nicholas Fury is the right hand of like the Queen of England, and he's kind of working for like the sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. version that's, working with the royal family, whatever. His squire is Peter Parquois, who's like this young man. They're all there. All the characters are like it's Sir Richard Reed of his ship, and him and his three sort of explorers on the ship that is called the Fantastique. They're like the Mighty Thor is there. All the Marvel characters are there, but they're in the year 1602.
They're all colonizers.
Kind of, except
burn the book.
Except
burn it.
Here's my favorite. There's a 6'3", 220-pound, white-skinned, blonde-haired Native American named Rojas, who is revealed to be Steve Rogers. Like they made Captain America a Native American guy.
Okay, don't burn it.
That's kind of cool.
But the twist is that he's actually Captain America from a future of the Marvel universe. When one of the characters figures it out, they turn to this Native American because he's just sort of like, he's not speaking in English throughout the whole story, because they're like, oh, he's just like a white-skinned, blonde Native American. I think they're like, he was raised by Native Americans somewhere in Virginia or whatever. And at some point, somebody turns to him and they go, but you're from the future, aren't you, Captain? And he just like reveals, he goes, you figured it out. And he talks like normal. So he's from a future world where a villain.
I would have been reading that
going, you scoundrel.
It was awesome. He's from a future Marvel universe where a bad guy basically took over, imprisoned or killed all the superheroes. But for him to sort of break the spirit of rebellion that people would have, sent him into the past and sent him way into the past into the early development of what would be the United States. So he shows up by himself basically in North America, and then he links up with Native American tribes. And Steve Rogers is going, I'm going to try and make it so that this country is founded better than it was in normal history. Right? Imagine Steve Rogers with his ideals. He's like, I'm going to definitely try to prevent the genocide of Native Americans. Like it's very interesting. So, but because here's the big twist of the comic, his presence in the past, which wasn't supposed to be there, his presence is what causes the universe, the reality of this world, to sort of start creating and propagating and popping up the other Marvel characters that he's used to living with. Nick Fury, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men. They start popping up and instead of Charles Xavier, it's Carlos Javier from Spain. And he has a school of mutants.
Why? I need this book immediately.
It's just because of the presence of one character.
Wow.
So what if the presence of the Fantastic Four getting thrown into this universe in the past, in the 40s, 50s, or 60s or whatever, all of a sudden makes it so that other MCU characters that we're familiar with start popping up in this reality. Like Steve Rogers, you know, is now Captain America he was unfrozen in the 60s, not in the 2000s, not in 2011, but in the 60s. Or here's another one. How about in this universe, instead of Tony Stark becoming Iron Man, he becomes Doctor Doom. And that's where that Robert Downey Jr. version of Doctor Doom could come. So he's native to this universe, maybe even if the Fantastic Four are not. So yeah, I stole that idea from Marvel 1602, a Marvel comic book. There is a precedent.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting. And so maybe that's why that Doctor Doom, the Robert Downey, isn't the true. Like he's kind of was born and raised as Tony Stark, but then maybe something happens, becomes scarred, becomes Doctor Doom, gets in charge of Latveria. I don't know what's going to happen. Becomes a sorcerer instead, but also a technician. I don't know what's going to happen.
A technician?
Yeah, just so you know, rewiring your TV sets. But
he went to ITT Tech.
Yeah, exactly.
He did Technical Institute.
Yeah. He didn't go. He didn't go to Harvard. He went to ITT Tech.
Yeah, certification. He's got it. You know, he can fix it for you.
Oh my god.
You know, but that might be where this Doctor Doom originates from. And then it might be why that Doctor Doom won't stay on. Like that's why the Robert Downey Jr. is only a temporary. So maybe in the solve of all of this, Reed Richards will go, we're actually not from here. We're from this other universe that another Doctor Doom pooped us into this one. And when Reed Richards solves it, maybe the same way that we saw in like Avengers Endgame or Loki, as soon as something is kind of replaced and fixed, the branch timeline kind of erases or fixes itself.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe this retro future 60s will go away.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's also kind of messed up too. Or merge. I don't know.
I think that's just kind of what's throwing me for a loop for all of this stuff. It's just the Fantastic Four currently, what we've seen in the trailers is very unique, very stylized, and very different from everything else we've seen. Like, where is that going to go? It clearly doesn't exist in the present or what we think is the present. So
yeah. Like
incursions are causing problems.
But could Matt Shakman, the director, direct a Fantastic Four where they're now in the present MCU? Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, it's possible.
I don't know because like Joe Johnston directed Cap 1, but he didn't direct Winter Soldier because Joe Johnston is the Rocketeer guy.
Yeah, but Matt Shakman also like that series spans multiple decades, right? Because
WandaVision.
WandaVision because it's different realities, but. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's very possible.
Hector, hit us with these comments and questions. You said that 20 minutes ago.
I did. I remembered 1602, and I was like, "Hang on, I gotta talk about this. This is too good." And Adam kept tickling me with like, "Really?" I was like, "Hang on, let me weave this story. Let me make sure I get it right because it's good.
Let me tingle his jingles completely."
I tell you, man, that twist that happens in that issue when he's like, "Okay, you got me, Nick." Like whatever he says when Sir Nicholas Fury's like, "You're not from here, aren't you, Cap?" And he's like, "You got me." It's so good. Let's get into some YouTube questions here. These are comments. This is from The Jedi of Us, Part 2. Says, the way this will be the first MCU movie with a Latino as the lead, and not a lot of people are acknowledging, this is crazy to me. It's the main reason why I'm so hyped for this. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, will be peak and fantastic casting. Everyone looks fantastic, of course, but man, I hope if this movie succeeds with a guy like Pedro as a lead, that Marvel should greenlight a MCU movie with a Latino superhero like from the comics as the lead. Typically Reed was white and now he's being played by a Latino actor, a Chilean American guy. I just like that comment. I think it's a good.
I mean, I think it's a really astute comment, and I think it's something we've been asking for fucking ever. We're still waiting for a check. We're still waiting for a check.
Listen, Pedro Pascal wore a really nice shirt that had a Czech flag on it and a Mexican flag. And that was official, unficial Czechskins merchandise.
And that shirt is $600 in case you want to buy it.
I ain't gonna buy it, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt.
It was. Okay, next up we've got Sable King 2066 says, I'm pretty sure the Secret Wars angle here is that they do indeed exist in their own universe, but during Secret Wars, Doom is going to mash a bunch of universes into one to make Battle World, and somehow the movie's going to end with the remaining pieces being merged together into a new timeline where all the major players like the X-Men, Fantastic Four, Avengers, etc. coexist at the same time, basically a soft reboot where some things happened as we saw them, but others didn't happen or happened differently. What do you guys think?
I think this is the thing that sometimes with the Multiverse Saga, and I say this as like a non-Marvel, not a deep Marvel comic book reader, it's really dense, and I feel like maybe it can get a little too confusing. I know that they'll find a way to kind of dilute it to the essence of what exactly they needed to do, But even when you go back to a show like Loki, that's all about branching timelines, fixing timelines, and getting everything back together. I worry if some people will see it as an interesting creative way to solve the problem, or if a lot of people look at it and go like, that's such a cheap way to fix the whole thing, instead of just birthing everything out of the sacred timeline.
Did you feel that way with the TV DC Arrowverse? Because Supergirl was on CBS,
right?
And Supergirl for the first couple seasons was her own reality.
Yeah.
And then they did the crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then they basically merged it and said, oh, Supergirl and the Flash have been in the same reality this whole time.
Right. I didn't, but I also look at the CW Arrowverse differently than these like multi-billion dollar movies.
And Crisis on Infinite Earths, that's
I don't know if that's fair, but that's how I
think it is. And that's the whole point of whatever that story is. Yeah. It's literally meant to sort of clean house. I don't see Secret Wars the same way. I think some people put Secret Wars, the Jonathan Hickman one especially, as like, oh, this is just going to be their way to bring in the X-Men. I'm like, that's not what Secret Wars did. This is going to be their way to bring in Miles Morales. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Yeah. Donald Glover said he had a nephew already.
Yeah,
like,
we've already established that.
We don't have to do, oh, this will be the way to explain why the X-Men have never been around. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Each new movie is the explanation. That's it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think there's one key thing too that got introduced in X-Men in Deadpool and Wolverine, the anchor beings. Is that gonna play anything into what we're seeing in how things might converge?
According to Kevin Feige, it will.
My theory is that Doom is gonna go around murdering all the anchor beings.
Ooh.
And he's coming for Tom Holland.
Yes.
Who's the anchor being of the MCU. Which is crazy, but you gotta love it because like even though they're sharing that character's rights, Marvel Studios recognizes Spider-Man as the most important Marvel character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he is.
is.
And when
wait, is that definitive?
No, this is again just a theory.
Okay.
And the theory
this is just Hector's brain firing off.
Some internet companies are like, no, that's for sure. I'm like, we don't know that, but that's the theory.
No one has said so.
But the reason I think it's a strong theory is because if Dr. Doom, who looks like Robert Downey Jr., shows up to the MCU looking for Spider-Man to kill him, and it's Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's going to have a reaction to that emotionally. He's going to see his mentor trying to kill him, which is, I think, really the main reason why they brought back Robert Downey Jr. It's like the main plus story-wise, you know? Okay, next one. We've got Matcha, 1996. Honestly, I love Hector's theory. It sounds so good, and it makes them fit so... Sorry, I know, Alex. It's not... Matcha's trying to kiss my own ass.
Hector's gonna... all these comments are like, well, Hector's the best.
No,
Hector's the most handsome
Hector's
of the three.
Stellar. His brain, I love
Hector
it.
looks like he smells good.
I want his brain in my body.
No, that's not true.
Hector
in my body. All right. Well, this person said it's good and it makes them fit so much in the MCU without feeling bad that their world, the retro 60s universe, is destroyed and joined in the MCU universe just so that they can be a part of the MCU. Maybe that was just to make myself feel better.
That's
basically it's a summary.
I have no comment on that.
Okay, no comment. Okay, I want to talk
Thanks
about
for tuning your own horn.
But here's a comment that is challenging what we were talking about, and specifically challenging my little theory in our trailer reaction. Matthew Haywood says, Hector, what if Reed figured out he can't bring back his universe after what Galactus has done, and instead vows to never let Galactus do it to another universe?
That's also very, very valid.
That's a comic book adaptation.
Yeah, and honestly, there are some things that you can't fix. Obviously,
I don't accept it.
Yeah, I know you don't accept it, but I also think that that's a trope that was kind of crossed with the multiverse of like, oh well, we have other multiversal characters, and look, no one will ever die. Nobody will ever die, right? I think that's a way to really put the stakes up really, really high. That there's events that happen that cannot be turned around, that cannot be fixed. As smart as Reed is, maybe it's a thing that kind of like just drives him crazy, or is his driving force, like vowing to never let Galactus do it again until he finds a solution, which might take 50 years.
The entire run of Pedro Pascal's involvement in the MCU.
Right? So something along those lines.
Well, and the other thing too, really quick, the thing about Secret Wars and Doomsday, Secret Wars more so because the title is shared with the title of the comic book, which they're adapting. We have to remember that these comic book movies are never a one-to-one adaptation.
No, correct.
Right.
They are going to mold it and bend the rules of what the comic book was to fit their Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I remember seeing it with Civil War and all, so many people complain, it's not like the comic book. It doesn't have all these characters. No shit.
Yeah.
It's never going to. You're never going to get a one-to-one.
I agree. I would honestly...
I think I offended him.
No. I'm just I'm thinking... I think I would accept that if it was, for example, Miles Teller Reed Richards, who
sure.
came out of his universe and he goes, my universe, right? If it was the Fantastic, if it was Fanforstic, and he came in and he becomes the Maker, who's the evil version of Reed Richards that is in Ultimate Comics, and that people have been like, dude, that's a great use of Miles Teller and a great way to bring him in. He could be a part of the multiversal thread, and then you write him off, and then he's no longer a part of the ongoing. No, why?
I'm just kidding. I'm just a hater. I just hate that movie that much.
That's fine.
He did sell me in Top Gun Maverick though. I do.
Okay.
I do like him as an actor, and this is not a dig at him personally.
But again, how many times have you seen this? Marvel Studios doing something that another studio did better. Like them,
That's true.
Like they brought back Jamie Foxx Electro, and it was great.
It was good. It was good.
Like, we're gonna keep him black. We're not gonna make him blue. And it's like, good call. You guys did it right.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a fun one. This is from our Discord. Stamina MC says, any opinion on the theory that Sue is or will be pregnant at some point during the movie, and that VFX artists have hidden her baby bump in one of the trailer shots when Reed is giving the tour to like the reporter or whatever?
I mean, I don't have any like comic book knowledge to add to it other than like I know some things, but I think you definitely elevate the stakes if that is the case. And Susan Storm is going through, I don't know how long, we still don't know how much time has passed between them getting their abilities and then whatever present day that we're currently in.
Right.
So was she already pregnant while they got their abilities?
This is at the end of the movie.
Right.
This is at the beginning.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you definitely elevate the stakes, and it means that Reed is going to be that much more determined to protect his family. What does that mean? Who knows?
I think it's real fucking risky to add those two kids into the MCU. These are omnipotent kids, dude.
But Reed and Sue's kids are at least one of them, and I think maybe both, but one of them is a mutant. And that's another thing that like ties them into the larger Marvel universe. So I'm like, don't just leave them in their own reality. Like they have to, I want to see Pedro Pascal and Susan Storm having a meeting with a Charles Xavier in the future at some point. And not Patrick Stewart, but like the new MCU Charles going forward.
I just don't think, given the power scaling that we've seen with things,
yes,
I don't think it's the right time to add.
But that's long term, baby.
No, I know. But
Franklin,
listen, adding Franklin, just adding Franklin alone scales up the power level to everybody. He's more powerful than Galactus and anybody that we've seen so far.
Yes.
He could snap his fingers, everybody's done. He could have snapped his fingers on Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet. Like, this
he's just
dude
a
is
baby.
And he's just a baby, right?
Yeah.
I think it's real fucking risky to add that type of power into the MCU right now. Because it's just too big. I think eventually maybe a fully powered Doom, maybe even like if Null comes in or something along those lines, adding a character that has that level of power. Because I'm still waiting for fucking Hulk to get his comeuppance. Like, I still need Hulk to crack. He needs to crack Manhattan in half first. Like he needs to Hulk out and have the entire world be afraid of Hulk. And then have somebody like Sentry or Franklin come in and like wreck shit.
Their son, Franklin Richards, is so powerful that he's involved in a big way in the Onslaught storyline.
Yes, dude.
Which is the merging of Magneto and Charles Xavier.
Yes.
Now, wouldn't it be cool if they're setting up and like, oh, okay, Reed and Susan are going to have a baby boy. And as far as all the tests indicate, normal. And they have this baby at the end of this movie or maybe in the next movie, whatever the case may be. But then post Secret Wars, Franklin's a little toddler running around. The next phase of, look, I can already see you're freaking out.
It's
but the next phase of the MCU, when they eventually bring in a new actor to play their version of Magneto, a new actor to play their version of Charles Xavier, do stories for like a decade. At the end of that, their big goodbye is Onslaught. Like they do a version of Onslaught, but that by this point, Franklin's like 10 years old. Perfect.
That could work. That could work. It's just going to take a long time.
But I'm saying take your time. I don't want big powered Franklin. I say take your time.
Here's the thing. When Franklin gets kind of introduced into the world, when Reed first finds out he has powers.
You are right.
Franklin's holding a fucking galaxy in his hands.
Too much.
Dude.
Don't do that.
He's in his room playing with blocks, and there's galaxies floating around at the same time. Too much, dude.
That's too sexy.
Too much. No, it's just too big.
That's insane.
Given the current, like, we still need. I still want Wolverine to be a threat.
That's also crazy because I have to imagine like what that's going to be like for a viewer sitting in the theater looking at that,
it's
going,
just too much.
Huh?
I believe that Marvel Studios knows that it's too much, and they know how to space out their sort of threats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at how they did Avengers movies. The first one was Loki, just in New York. The second one was not Thanos, it was Ultron, and a little bit bigger, more of like a country versus just a city. The third one was, okay, we'll do Thanos, we'll do the whole Infinity Gauntlet saga, blah, 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 blah. So I believe that if they're bringing in Franklin Richards already, they're like, too soon. let's wait.
It's too sexy.
And then we'll space it out. Okay, we got time for a few more. CMU0012 on YouTube says, isn't that Sentry's storyline? How he was always there, but that the whole world had to forget him so that he could become a normal human, and then the void stays away? In reference to this theory that like Doctor Doom or someone with their sorceress power basically banishes the Fantastic Four to this 60s retro world and erases everyone on the planet's memory of the Fantastic Four being there since phase 1 of the MCU.
We've seen it before.
This commenter saying, isn't that the Sentry storyline? And I would say yes, but I'm fine with stealing that from the Sentry and giving it to the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
It's about what you gain and what you lose. We lost that Hank Pym created Ultron, which was a big loss story-wise. There's a lot of interesting stuff for Hank Pym Michael Douglas to have to do with Ultron, but we gave it to Tony Stark and Bruce Banner and basically the Avengers. They also say like Thor's hammer helped birth Ultron and then Vision, whatever. So it's like we gave it to the Avengers, and what was the benefit and what was the loss? And I think it was worth it ultimately for the benefit to do like, let's do the Ultron storyline now and then go forward with other.
It would actually be really insane because, again, we talked about Thunderbolts and how that's kind of considered an underdog.
Yeah.
Imagine if that has like a key component to Fantastic Four in
I think
it.
it might.
Dude, I mean, I think Brave New World is going to end with Val showing up and being like, President Ross, do you want us to go ahead with the Thunderbolt initiative? And then that's going to lead into the next movie.
Yeah.
And then shit, dude, the Sentry might lead into the next. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, yes, you're correct, and I'm fine with stealing that idea. The same way I'm
I
stealing
think that's good.
Marvel 1602 and giving it to Reed Richards and Susan Storm and Ben and Johnny's presence.
Creating. Okay.
And lastly, I mean, this is just what you said. Our friend Jack Shipley says, we already know there's a magic spell that can be cast to make everyone forget you exist. It's possible that Tilda Swinton's Ancient One was asked to cast that spell for reasons yet to be revealed.
Very possible.
Could be. Could be.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're tired. We did it. We've wrung everything out.
I feel like I
just ran a fucking marathon.
I feel like I just exercised for like an hour and a half, dude. Like I had such a brain mental workout.
Well, and the thing, I think for me, again, like the thing that I really appreciate about these conversations and doing these deep dives on this stuff is it really gets me thinking about things that I would have not thought of, because I like a lot of the Marvel properties, but I don't know them as deeply like I know the DC stuff.
Sure.
So I mostly go into into it knowing what you guys know based on what you've told me.
I'm glad we did this episode, because this is one that definitely I'm like, I know some stuff. Augustine knows some stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's really fun to have him freak out about the possibility of Franklin Richards. I think she's pregnant, dude. Did you see the shot? People were slowing it down and frame by framing it.
It's possible. It's possible. But like I'm saying, it could not be reality as well. Like it could be something that's just not there.
Vanessa Kirby just walked funny.
She just walked funny. We don't know. Who knows? People are saying she was waddling. I don't know.
Who knows?
What if she hurt her leg?
Who's frame by framing in this movie that closely?
Sciatica?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know if she has sciatica.
Exactly.
Yeah. It hurts.
Exactly.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Here's the final question, Hector. Do you still hate Latvarians?
Yeah, dude, I hate them.
Yeah.
They're horrible people.
horrible people.
Oh man,
that's an old running joke.
That's an old callback,
Alex. That it would make me seem racist towards Latvians, which are a fictional people from Eastern Europe, and they're under the rule of the monarch Victor Von Doom.
Yes,
but
and they do everything he says.
I hate them,
but they have free healthcare.
I hate all the Latvians in the whole world. They do. They do.
Sons of bitches.
He's like pretty good to them, actually.
He's like if I had the option of like, okay, ultimate protection for my family, food whenever I wanted.
But you have to
I didn't have to worry about money,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to like join an army and potentially die. I might think about
Honestly,
it.
it's a better deal than what us U.S. citizens have today.
Exactly.
Straight
what
up.
do we gotta lose?
6 years ago, you'd be like, today you're like,
Today, yeah.
I would take Dr. Doom over Tech Bros any day.
Absolutely. I'm this close to getting deported, you guys. Like it's fucking wild out there, dude.
Jesus.
I'm like dodging people.
Oh my God.
That's true. And if you're a loyal Latvian, like Doom will take care of you.
He won't let you get deported. That's for sure.
That's true, dude.
Yeah. I didn't got to worry about that.
It's settled.
Oh my God. It's beautiful, beautiful countryside.
Yeah.
But there are
great.
deadly robot duplicates of their monarch who could kill you.
Listen,
but other than that,
but they'll protect you, but they could kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good to me, dude. I say we move the podcast
lots
studio.
Of beer, lots of fried schnitzel, all kinds of stuff.
Move the podcast studio to Latveria.
We'll just shoot in the countryside. It'll be great.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome. I love it. But guys, of course, let us know your thoughts on all the questions and the theories that were brought up. This was like This was
dense
very
one.
dense.
It's a
I
dense
loved
one.
it though.
We're
It was
getting
so
ourselves nice and ready because we got a bit of a Marvel summer this summer.
good. Yeah.
And literally tomorrow we're watching Captain America: Brave New World,
Mhm.
and you have time this weekend to watch it. And so our next episode is going to be about Cap, and it'll be about the future of the MCU
What's next?
more. Once we have a couple of things, I mean, how much can Brave New World really inform us?
Sure.
But once we have a few more clues, maybe what they're going to do with Tiamat, the
Mhm,
giant
mhm,
Eternals
mhm,
body that is the giant Celestials body. We're going to talk about all that stuff. So please go back to our Discord. There's going to be a discussion there for the Captain America / Future of the MCU episode next week. We want to know your questions, your theories, your Hector, shut up, you're stupid, and here's whys. Give us all of that stuff.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
Or
All good stuff.
the I'm gonna scratch your belly, Hector questions.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
Hector's
yeah.
handsome and correct.
I think Hector.
Oh, what a
This is-
lovely comment.
This comment from Hector's
Top
mom.
of the list.
Hector's mom.
Abby Trott.
Yeah,
Abby
well, this is Hector is the best.
Hector's cats are saying,
Oh, weird.
Hector's
Definitely-
Blu-ray collection chimed in. That's
definitely
weird.
fed me on time.
Hector so handsome. 426.9 says, I think that he's the best. All right.
Is that Oscar Isaac or is that Hector Navarro? I don't know.
Oh my God. That's great. But yeah, definitely check out our Discord. Jump in there, write down any questions, theories, or thoughts that you have about what we're going to talk about or your experience with Captain America. Check out everything else that we're watching. Check out the Patreon, check out the store. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching.